Welcome to Season 3 of The Lifestyle Chase, and I'm your host, Chris Liddle. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. To help this podcast grow, please share it on social media, rate 5 stars, tell your friends, and check out the past 140 episodes and counting. You can follow me on Instagram at Christian Liddle and at The Lifestyle Chase. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. All right, so welcome to The Lifestyle Chase. This is another day when I'm interviewing 2 people in the same day. It is episode 182, and I am proud to bring you the one and only Coach Pow, a man of many names, of which I will let him represent himself in the best way that he can. So how are you doing today?
Well, how are you?
I'm excellent. So, where did Coach Pow come from? I have some backstory on a lot of things, but I'm first of all curious about the whole Coach Pow. How did that come to be?
So Coach Pow. Pow was a nickname given to me by a good friend of mine. And, we used to go to the gym together, and he would see me, he would see me on the track, be like, man, you're powerful. Then he'd see me in the gym, and he's like, wow, it's there as well. That same quality, power personified. I'm seeing it in your squats, your deadlifts, your Olympic lifts. And then I joined him at the mixed martial arts gym, which was his stomping ground. And I'm throwing kicks and punches, and he's like, okay, it's still there. So he just started calling me Pow, just an abbreviation for powerful. And then, I ended up taking on that moniker Coach, because I shouldn't say I was always educating people, but the community who I was always hanging around with, they're like, man, there's something very insightful in what you just said. And, we kind of consider you to be a coach. So then they put Coach and Pow together and it was a wrap. It's stuck ever since.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I like when people find their way into a role naturally rather than forcing it. You'll see people who try to be a leader without having the experience. For yourself, you have a lot of accolades. You've got a lot of things that you've accomplished athletically. And so it's kind of like you have to pay to play. So having performed at the high levels, let's introduce you to my audience as if they know nothing about you. How would you want yourself to be introduced if you had full control?
To make it as simple as possible, I would just say that I exist. I exist. You know what I mean? Removing all these kind of labels and stuff like that. That's the best way. That would be the perfect world for me, is to just get rid of every label and stuff like that. That I know it can create, it can help to build some type of commonality. When I say I've done this and someone else says, hey, I've done that too. And then, we easily become friends, we start to connect. But I also find that there's a dark side to identifying yourself as something, where people, or one, you don't understand the title that you're assuming, or 2, someone else doesn't understand or dislikes the title that you use to identify yourself. Bit of a rabbit hole, but let's say to be, I feel like you had something to say.
So it's cool because of the way you think. That's kind of a big part of why I had you on the show. You presented at the last year's Evolve, or maybe it was the year before's Evolve Fitness Symposium.
Oh yeah.
I liked the presentation. I thought it was cool, and just how it was unlike any other presentation I've been to, in the sense that it got me out of my echo chamber, got me thinking differently. I kind of liked hearing your experience in just your hamstring injury, and just going up to a very competitive level of running and learning things the tough way, but then having your experience through knowing what you know because of what you went through, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just to kind of give people a bit more backstory, you've been a very high level competitive runner. I think, if I'm correct, you were on the Olympic relay team for Beijing Olympics, or? Yeah,
that's taking me into something that I wanted to share with you as well, which kind of ties into a question that I believe that you may ask me today, and that's dealing with hardships and stuff like that, and how do you deal with setbacks. So I qualified for the Olympic Games in 2008 in Beijing, and I went as a member of the men's 4x100 meter relay team. But I would say that unfortunately, / fortunately, I got sick and was unable to compete. So I sat on the sidelines and watched my teammates do their job, have fun, go out there and perform. So, some people will say, wow, like, how do you deal with that? It's, you preparing for most of your life to step in a lane at the Olympics, and then you get sick and you sit and watch. And I had a hard time dealing with that. For some time, I hid it quite well, but I'd say I had to teach myself to be ready and to be to be ready and to be gracious when dealing with adversity and anything that was offered to me. Because ultimately, like, when you think about training, the only way to get better is to expose yourself to stress. So I look at it like, okay, well, that's the same thing spiritually and in all those other planes. Is I need that kind of stress. I need those difficult times, those obstacles in order to get better. And for a while, I let it be one that weakened me until I realized that it was something that was there to strengthen me. So once I realized how to utilize that kind of experience and that memory, it's been nothing but upwards and onwards, undulating, upwards and onwards. But yeah, so that's been, a member of the men's 4x100 meter relay team in Beijing. Going backwards, 2007, a member of the men's 4x1 relay team in Pan Am's at the Pan American Games that were contested in Rio de Janeiro. My Brazilian friends will get mad at me, Rio de Janeiro. And then prior to that, 2006, I was a bronze medalist with the 4x100 meter relay team. It's a tongue twister. At the Commonwealth Games that were contested in Melbourne, Australia. So that's my track career. I have a men's championship with my team at the University of Sherbrooke, Université de Sherbrooke in Quebec, where I went to school. And what else is there? Yeah, I medaled at nationals over 200 meters. Most people wouldn't think that because I'm a bit of a big unit, a short guy, but over 200 pounds. 200 meters was my favorite event, but my coaches thought otherwise because of my size. They thought I'd be best suited for the 100 meters. They were wrong.
Well, I mean, amidst all that stuff that you shared, I really liked that you highlighted just the clarity in your Olympic experience, but there's so much value in having gone through that. I mean, we can frame it in so many different facets, like the fact that like this podcast is up and coming. And if I only considered myself a podcast host based on like all of my success, then I would miss out on all of the validation for the work that I put in. Like, very few people have the capacity to put in the work that it takes to get to the levels that you've been to. And that work capacity can translate to so many other things. And that is kind of like the energy that you bring to everything that you do. And it's cool because as people learn more about you, like, there are a lot of sides to you. Like, you are very passionate about fashion. You're you're a deep thinker. You're eloquent with your speaking. So I like how you introduced yourself, because that's going to help people really understand it. And that's going to help people have more buy-in to understand, like, this is why we choose the things that you bring to the table. Like, we'll talk about RunFast later in the episode, but like they would have that understanding for like why you would participate in RunFast. And I have to give a quick shout out to Kenny Buller. I see he's watching us live. He's complimented your style. So awesome to see him watching live.
Yes, awesome. Kenny.
So, go ahead.
I have a moment. This is a conversation. So Kenny and I go back to, I believe, late 2008 or perhaps early 2009, and takes us back to a place called Legends Training Center. And it hosted a lot of mixed martial artists. There was kickboxing classes, wrestling classes, jiu-jitsu classes on site. And the location was actually just behind Grant McHugh, and I'm actually looking in that direction now from where I domicile. And I started going to that gym. I would walk there. I would walk past and you'll pop my head in and watch some of the classes. And I remember there was I believe there was a kickboxing class going on. I ended up, like doing a drop in, and Kenny was in the class, and I believe he was like perhaps an odd man out at the time. So I was his partner for certain drills. And I remember him being so much, like, he was very proficient at the time, and still is, but I was one of those like just basement martial artists. And we had this drill, we were doing some hand fighting, and I had to grab his wrist, and his goal was to basically break my grip. And he was breaking my grip so easily, I would grab his wrist, he would grab mine, and I'd have a hard time, getting him off my wrist, and, seemingly being like a strong looking guy. I was like, what's going on? So anyways, that experience encouraged me to get some Captain Crusher hand grips and train my grip strength. And I'll say, Kenny, you're probably one of the reasons why I could do a 1-arm pull-up and deadlift over 700. So thank you.
That is so awesome. I mean, like, our challenges shape us. Like, there's so many, like, I can relate in so many different instances where somebody just absolutely humbled me, and then it stuck with me, and then it became one of my biggest strengths today. Like, I mean, people have called me quiet, so I started a podcast and started talking to people and just showed them who likes to talk, kind of thing.
I love it.
If we went into a time machine and took you to like grade 8, where would that take you in your life?
Oh man, grade 8. That would take me to Etobicoke, Ontario. That would take me to Our Lady of Peace High School. What was going on then? I obviously was, focused on getting out and getting into high school. I was probably also thinking like I was going to be moving out of the house or something and getting married. I don't know. I'm lying. That's not what was going through my mind. I was actually thinking about a football scholarship, though I hadn't even played organized football. I was a huge fan of like BCS bowl games and stuff like that, NCAA football. And I just always saw myself eventually getting into the sport and getting a scholarship. It was that or the Army at the time. Those are my thoughts. Track and field wasn't really on my mind, even though it was something that I was interested in. Elementary school track and field meets were more of a social gathering than anything else. I'd say like a good dopamine experience, like it's just mad excitement wrapped around track and field. But I wasn't so interested in running in a straight line with 7 other people. And that was it. I wanted something a little longer lasting.
So what was it that kind of drew you further down your journey towards running track? Like, what were like maybe 2 moments that kind of made it more clear of the direction that you wanted to go?
It would have to be, there was a year where I set high expectations for myself for anything that I was doing or about to do. And this is when I was first put on to, I guess what we now know, the famous vision boards. And it was a classmate of mine. I actually remember first name Jessica. She was a track and field athlete. And I just remember how organized she was, and just like, she was quiet, but I just watched her, and everything she did was like very refined. And I could say like we were unfamiliar friends, so definitely acquaintances. And one day I just asked her like, a little bit about herself, and she said that she was doing track and field, and she was participating in track and field as an extracurricular activity. She was paying a trainer outside, and every once in a while I just pick her brain and get a little bit more information. And at the time, my sister was also doing track and field. So I had these 2 individuals who both had very similar qualities, both very meticulous in the way they did things. They particularly Jessica had introduced me to the vision board idea. And I was like, you know what, I want to use that for everything else. So I did that for, my classes, courses or subjects that I wasn't too excited about. And I kind of set I set a line and I said, you know, I want to do this well in this area, that well in this area, or I'm going to put this effort over here. And I remember high school track season came around, or tryouts came out, and I wrote down that I was going to try out for track and field, and I wanted to achieve this. And I actually got almost everything on that board done except for the track and field thing, the goal that I set up for track. And it bothered me. And I remember thinking to myself, well, you know what? I'll get it next year. And that's what happened. And the following year, I wrote down on the board what I wanted to accomplish, certain things, and definitely track and field made it on the board. And I got closer to it. I didn't necessarily hit the mark, but I got closer to it. And then it was one of those things where I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do even better. I'll get even closer. If I shoot for, as they say, if you shoot for the moon, you're bound to hit a star if you don't hit the moon. So some part of my journey and my relationship with track and field had something to do with just taking on a challenge and, I'd say aiming for the moon and hitting the stars, but knowing that the moon was attainable. So I didn't stop until I hit the moon, but home was obviously a place that supported track and field, like my sister particularly, because she was a great sprinter in high school. And she was like my biggest fan. So, and my sister and I have a really close relationship. So having her come to my track meets and everything and seeing the smile that it put on her face just to see me compete, it was like, that was super powerful, and imprinting.
Definitely. Well, I like that you brought up vision boards because it kind of makes me wonder, like, is that something that you've continued to apply throughout the years? Like in the last 2 years, have you found yourself using something like a vision board?
Yeah, So I feel like I've moved around a lot. Usually I'm like on other people who move around a ton, not on them, but, I kind of wonder like, why does someone move around that much? For example, someone moves from place to place like 4 or 5 times in a year. You're like, okay, what's going on? But I look back and I'm like, man, you know what? I think I've moved around quite a bit. And because of that, I've learned that I've had to pack light. So, I think I've become a little bit more of a minimalist, and instead of actually having a vision board, like a tangible vision board, I do it up here. So like the morning meditations, and it's not like an obsession thing or an obsessive thing, but, I can have my eyes open or my eyes closed. It doesn't matter. And I feel like I feel like I can see what it is that I desire, or what it is that I want to achieve. Yeah, desire. Excuse me. So the vision board is there. It's just an imagery board.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's something that I do myself. I mean, like we can't do things that we set out to do if we can't see them in our head. Like whether we're writing them down, putting out the picture, or just visualizing it like consistently to the extent that we make ourselves believe that we're going to do it. In the last 3 years, what is something that you almost didn't think that you could do, but you kind of like willed yourself to accomplish it?
I guess I can compartmentalize with that thing. Maybe I'll start off with the strength side of things, the physical. So 2017 was a great year, but there was also, or not but, it was a great year. I got injured. I didn't know the extent of the injury. And to this day, still, it has not been confirmed. But that's okay because I've dealt with it. And it was something that I felt at the time in 2017 that it was going to be very hard for me to get back from and to regain confidence, movement confidence. Because usually after an injury, I would recover pretty quickly. For example, I tore my left hamstring several times, right hamstring once. But every time after the tear, be it even like a grade 2 tear in my hamstring, I would come back like quickly and run fast again. Obviously, some people will be like, well, that's the reason why you tore it 3 times. They were evenly spaced by about a year. So. But, I kind of got this nickname from some as like the machine. So I actually have like a bionic leg illustration tattooed on my left leg. But this injury was different. After this injury, I believe I had the right modalities in place, therapeutic input in place to help me recover. And my mind was strong. And then something changed. I started to believe in the injury. The psychology of pain was real, and it took me 3 years. It took me 3 years to get over it. There's so many positions that I would be very nervous to get into, but the viewer wouldn't be able to tell based on the content that I was posting on social media. You could say, I guess I was editing my life. I wasn't showing you the pain I was in. Mind you, I wouldn't do an exercise that at the time would elicit, pain greater than, even a 2 out of 10. So like I was deadlifting, I was deadlifting heavy, bench pressing heavy, all that stuff. But if you asked me to perform like an ab wheel rollout or a dead bug with reciprocating legs or something, I would shake or I'd be in pain, or I couldn't do it mentally. So finally, I'm past that point. But I realized that I needed to apply myself the same way I did when I thought I was Wolverine, when I thought I was that bionic man. Not ignore certain signs because I need to pay attention to all the planes, but to empower myself and believe in my strength, believe in my ability to accumulate information that I could sift through to potentially help me out, which is one of the reasons why we probably follow some of the same people or some really good people who pour out rich content, from Kyle Dobbs, Pat Davidson, to the St. Clair, Dr. St. Clair, both of them, Katie, and I can't remember her husband's name, but, the list goes on and on. PRI, Postal Restoration Institute, DNS, all that stuff. So jumping on a lot of that information and also the kind of the spiritual growth side of things, are what helped me get to where I am right now with that injury. Other things I'd say recent would be kind of RunFast class, because I kind of painted myself into a corner. I started off in this industry as a speed coach, as a sprint coach, teaching athletes how to sprint. I thought at the time, or I knew at the time, and this was 2010, that track and field had a lot of value that it could carry over to other sports, particularly in the side or in the realm of acceleration, because acceleration pretty much crosses or intersects every sport for the most part. Dry land sport and ice sport. So I wanted to bring that to the table, and I did that. And, I have journals of like workouts to the feedback that I was getting from the athletes, and it was great. And then at some point it became a thing where people were like, you're my strength coach. You're my strength coach. You're my strength coach. And actually I've noticed that I stopped teaching the sprints, and, I became very weight room dominant, and it's not a bad thing because I learned so much in my time there. Or I'm still there. But I got to move back. I intentionally moved my focus back to sprinting, back to running. And I've never been happier. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I feel like I'm robbing people when I go to work because I love what I'm doing so much that I'm like, man, I really want to do this for free.
Well, I mean, that's something that a lot of people would be able to relate to. Just like when you're kind of in your flow state of your career, you just want to exist there. You want to grow and flourish. And if you're content, you don't notice like the hard work. Like, to build the program that you're building takes a lot of work behind the scenes, and it takes being open to a lot of feedback. It takes a lot of refinement, but you don't really notice it the same way that you might notice something that you're not fulfilled with. You talked about how you had to recognize the signs with that injury that kind of like set you back. Like, what are the signs today? Like, if something like that was to happen again, what would be the first couple of things that you'd notice that would tell you to course correct?
Thoughts. So the negative, those, I'd say, I was trying to find this metaphor, this aphorism that resonated with me, but I seem like I'm forgetting it in this moment. But it had to do with like, this analogy had to do with not needing to water the weeds. Like the weeds will just grow, and the weeds represented the negative thought, but then like all the other things that you usually have to like groom in order to grow, that was your so-called positive thinking or happiness. And I find that there are times where those red lines were when I stopped watering anything. So the weeds were growing, and it was, oh man, I'm injured. Oh man, I won't be able to do this. I won't be able to do that. I won't be able to do this, you know, and I don't feel like good healing takes place at that time. And, you know, the snowball effect is real because I would let it go for a day or for a moment. It started with just a moment. Because prior to that, any injury I'd suffered, it was like I was already so excited about the return. Not enough that I would skip the things that were necessary to get me there, but enough that it was just belief in self and the imagery of seeing me back moving and being in my element. All of a sudden, none of those things were taking place. It was like, all right, oh my gosh, if I don't get back on time, I won't be able to do this, that, or that, or that, or that. And then it's like, it's just one moment, and you don't deal with it. You don't deal with it. I wasn't dealing with it by adding 3 more moments of good thoughts or good imagery. And then it was like, all right, I added a little bit more. And then until it was like, that's all I was thinking about was the fact that I'm injured and I'm out of play and I'm out of action and I can't lift or I can't do this, and, you know, and then all of a sudden it's just, that is who you become, you know? And, you know, there were times where I was just like, it was like having this identity crisis. It's being like, I'm that guy who can't do what that guy's supposed to do. It's like, you don't feel good. You don't feel good about yourself. But it's like, you really got to take, you know, perception is going to drive your reality. And, you know, we hear that too with sensory drives motor. You know what I mean? So it's like, that imagery, that's a sense, you know, and that imagery, even when I think imagery greater than visualization, is I think of like to me, imagery is I'm imagining it so well, so vividly that I can smell it, taste it, touch it. So it wraps all the senses in instead of just like trying to see it with my eyes, you know, and I feel like we do that with fear, with fear-based emotions. You know, we can touch it, smell it, sense it, all that stuff, or feel it. You know, so it's like I'm going to build what I want with using the same things, the same elements, the taste, the touch, the smell. You know, sorry, I kind of went off for a bit.
No, it was good. I was like, keep going, but like, I'm going to highlight some things that really stood out to me so that people take a moment to let it soak in, because you can't deny the fact that you have to like feel what you're going towards with all of the senses. And to give people a bit of perspective, I mean, when I feel discouraged or when I face setback in my career or personal life, the only thing that helps me get back on track is basically watering the plants. So you kind of made an analogy like that. For me, it's finding more people to connect with, finding ways to see the good in others. Seeing the good in others helps me see the talent in myself. And it doesn't need to be like ego driven, but it just needs to be practicing recognizing good qualities. Because if I can see good qualities in other people, then I start to see them in myself. And that's a big part of why I'm recording 6 podcast episodes in 1 week. Typically it's only 1 a week, but I'm doing 6 because like, just like you, I am human. I need to like sharpen the pencil to which I find my direction and improve. And I need practice in seeing my strengths, just like you were discussing in how you overcame difficulties and stuff. So did you have any further thoughts after my little ramble there?
No, I love it. I think I guess you could say that's how we select our friends. You know, we select our friends based on we identify certain qualities, and hopefully they're qualities that we would like to have within our own selection of qualities, or qualities that are like life driven or that drive life upward and not downward. But in doing so, it's like, sometimes you could say, I guess you could say perhaps sometimes I like to play devil's advocate only for the reason of provoking thought. But there are some people who do it because they're able to identify good qualities, as you say, and then identify them within themselves. And then sometimes there are others who will identify good qualities in others, but will compare themselves to those individuals as in a manner that creates a deficit in their mind, that they're not good enough, they're not like that individual. So sometimes, I mean, and I say that because I'm sure there are some times in my life where I've done that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think we all fall into that trap at some point. I think, especially within the fitness industry, people are very quick to see strength in others and then quickly create that deficit, like you say. I like that way of putting it, just creating that gap. The gap need not exist. Like, just surround yourself with those people and see how you grow. Don't see how you stumble, see how you grow, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the beautiful part about, I mean, surrounding yourself with, I'm not going to say like-minded individuals, but I'll say strong-minded individuals, or even individuals, I mean, because everyone's going to have strengths in some areas and weaknesses in others, but it's like those strengths can carry, those strengths can move mountains, not just within the network that you create, but even within yourself, because of the inspiration. And there's something that a good friend of mine says, and she said, I believe your purpose is to inspire and be inspired. And he was like, and frankly, I think that's everyone's purpose to a certain degree. And I was like, that's super rich. It's such a cool and cheap delivery that everybody can understand, inspire and be inspired. So you're selecting this group of individuals who you find are flourishing in ways that you would like to flourish, or, let's say, for lack of a better term, but you are also playing that role for somebody else, and not only that, you being in that room, that proverbial room with these individuals who you selected as friends, they're going to uplift you. So not only are you going to be better for them too, but you're going to be better for all of those, who are waiting to meet you, or who are accepting what you divulge, as your experiences. So.
Such an eloquent way to put it. And there's something else that I really noticed this past year, especially as of late, like this last gym closure, was your ability to take the right approach to a fitness lifestyle. It was refreshing. Yeah. I mean, it kind of shadowed my efforts within my living room, because like you were doing pull-ups on like light posts. I was like, whew, this is freaking awesome. So like, what inspired you to go to those lengths? Like it wasn't just a casual thing. Like you actually went out of your way to find fitness within the city of Edmonton. What kind of like got that light bulb going, and what fueled that fire?
I didn't have the equipment you had. That's why. You know what? I've always been a fan of like working out outside. Unfortunately at the time the weather wasn't, I mean, for the most part, the weather here, we got 7 months of winter. I think it's getting better though, but 7 months of winter where we're inside. So the moment that I saw clear skies and a bit of a sunny break, I'm looking at anything that I can hang off of that won't be too slippery. So I'll say just my creative mind, every day I walk outside, I'm literally staring at every post thinking, can I do a flagpole off of that? Can I do a pull-up, a one-arm pull-up? Can I do assisted pistol squats using this thing here? So my brain was always moving that way. And I think that was the blessing in COVID was, I think this crosses all barriers, is in all platforms. It really forced people to be more creative and resourceful. So being in the fitness industry and having a lifestyle that's basically movement is like the operative objective word. My brain was like, get moving, You see something, turn it into an activity. So that was the inspiration there, on top of just even seeing other people on social media. I remember, was it an Italian calisthenics like world champion? I can't remember his name. Showtime GP, and he was doing pull-ups and stuff like out in public. He was in Dubai and just like hanging off things. And I'm like, that's how I'm going to get my workout in. So I've been doing, that's what I was doing. Sneaking onto the LRT, not sneaking, paying to get onto the LRT, but guerrilla filming, because you're not supposed to film unless you have like a permit. So I'm telling on myself right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like half the videos on Instagram are guerrilla filming, essentially, like when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
It's cool that you were able to sort of embrace that, because it kind of reiterates the point that we were kind of making about like the setbacks in your track career, and how it forced you to find ways to reframe things, and it forced you to kind of like push through the uncomfortable feeling of things not going as you expected them to go, and then push once more to find like the plants that you could water. Like you got this row of plants and you can water it. It's nice that you have plants in the backdrop, because it helps me with my analogies. But yeah, it's just like that whole attitude is a game changer. Like it's the compound effect of having that attitude maybe 80% of the time, because nobody's perfect. We're all going to have that period of time where there's nothing that we could do, nothing anybody could say. But being able to really lean into that is going to help people both in the fitness industry, in business, in everything. So it's nice that you've been able to set examples for people to follow in that way. I've been watching you put together the RunFast program. I've watched some of my friends take it. Eric Turner, I think, took the RunFast. So what has that been like for you? Like in putting that forth and seeing different athletes try it out. Give me kind of like the introduction to it all, and what it's all about and what it can be for a person.
Okay, the elevator pitch. Where are my cue cards? So yeah, RunFast class is basically me getting back to my roots. Track and field taught me a lot, and I found that even within sprinting, there was some serious, like some really interesting universal principles that one helped me organize my life or shape my life, even though there's still some things in disarray, as is for everyone. We're all moving through life, figuring things out. But it was just basically thinking about refinement. And that's what this program was about. It was about refining a certain skill set. And then the delivery was all about sharing it in a very logical fashion, where it's just progressing from one phase to the next. And that's kind of how I see life. And I mean, we can say, the educational system or assembly line system some people talk about is similar. It's, okay, we're preparing you for certain things. We're preparing you in certain areas, certain subjects, but we're going to deliver the information to you in phases through grade 1 all the way to, all the way to university and beyond. So RunFast class, which is now actually called RunFast University. So RunFast University took a very similar approach. So teaching people how to run fast in particular. So breaking it down into components and then drip phasing that through a variety of volumes or various volumes. So teaching acceleration. So basically how to get started, teaching people fast upright running, which would be more common from athletes all the way to the general public. Backtrack acceleration is something that is considered one of the most highly coveted golden tickets in dryland sport. Acceleration, upright running, and then all the components. So the physiological and the technical elements, and kind of taking each one of those and then eventually blending them, combining these two things to create one unified system, which is a faster human being. So who doesn't want to run faster? I'm sure there's some people who will put their hand up, but then the next question would be, who wants to Who wants to learn how to move better? Who wants to improve coordination? Who wants to lose weight? You know, because we know that sprinting is great for improving body composition. So there are many reasons why someone would want to take RunFast class.
Definitely. And I mean, some of the things that stand out to me, just like in the sense that we want to create buy-in for people to have an active lifestyle. There's so many things that come up that create barriers, like unnecessary barriers, like people might be nervous about gym atmosphere, or maybe someone that they met intimidated them. But when we create like a reason to do all the other things. So like for sprinting, to actually properly sprint, you have to have a lot of prerequisites, and it's not like prerequisites are impossible, but they're like stepping stones. Like you have to be able to have the coordination that leads up to that fast running. And by having that end goal, the thing that caps it all off, it gives people the buy-in that they may have never had. Like you and I have our reason that we train. Like there's all kinds of layers to that, but most general population people don't have that. I mean, the other day, I'll give you kind of like a side story. I was talking to a few friends, and I got a little carried away, and I emphasized the importance of glute training. I was like, glute training is like imperative to your quality of life. And like the things that I was reflecting on was just like how a person carries their posture, how they'll end up breathing, their stress levels, their ability to go upstairs, their reduction of like injury, like the fact that like if you are working on training your glutes and hamstrings more than what you would have done if you didn't do anything, like you're going to live a more abundant life. And I was a little too passionate, so they just kind of, they were like, dude, you were passionate about big butts. And I'm like, look, like, it changes things. And so, like, RunFast, from my point of view, isn't just about, like, an athlete. It is open to anyone that has a body. Like, and go ahead.
From, like, I had Eric Turner, who plays professional lacrosse. And in the same group, I had a 56-year-old woman she is a very competitive masters level boxer and golfer. And she's one of my clients who I train in tandem sessions, who's had a host of issues around the hip. And for the last like 2.5, 3 years, we've really been working on that. And now she's graduated to being able to sprint. So yeah, I've been teaching her, you know, the drills. I've been kind of, like I say, drip feeding for a lot of the content that will help her or build up prerequisite strengths to be able to do it. So eventually she was there and graduated into the class. So she was a part of RunFast. So we have two ends of this. We have, I can't necessarily say opposite ends of the spectrum, but there's just like quite a big lineup or diversity within the RunFast class group. Like first RunFast, we had a young lady who was a Maxim model, and her background is in distance running, and I think it was more of a recreational thing than anything. I had like a professional wrestler in the group, and yeah, it's just been fun. Chiropractor, physiotherapists, triathletes, to speed-based sport athletes. So, ultimately everybody walks away with an understanding of how to run faster, how to run, because we focus on establishing running posture, arm action, leg action, and then we get into the intricacies like being able to project, so generate force in the right direction, being reactive, so being springy, so there's more of a tissue quality and nervous system quality that we're going for. Coordination, and lastly, the biggest part of coordinating the system is your ability to switch your arms and legs at higher and higher velocities, because that's kind of one of the toughest things for people to do, or most limiting things, is to be able to switch at high speeds.
Well, I mean, it's true. Like I work with a young client, and we were just kind of going over the movement mechanics of running. And we took our time, and then I just kind of expressed the benefits in which that, like, if he took the time and was very patient with this one simple skill, the value he would get when he's playing sports and stuff would be well worth it. Like if it took him
Yeah.
like 2 months to figure out the arms,
Yeah.
he'd see the benefits when he played soccer with his friends. And like that,
Yeah.
I think about my experience as a young athlete, I was always the underdog on the team. And if I put more effort in the mechanics, it would be so much more fun to play the sport because I'd be able to
Yeah.
contribute more to the team. And so it's like how we frame things helps people stick with it and helps them see the value in like the investments in what we put out. Like obviously we're gonna have a bias because like this is our world. We like fitness. That's what we do. But there is so much benefit to it in such a holistic way that hopefully people take advantage of in the years to come. Like having been like we really took for granted our ability to just go into gyms. And then now
Yeah.
that gyms are open again, like there is so much to be had, so much growth to chase after, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've always been curious about your passion for fashion. I like how that rhymed, but like tell me about what started that and how it kind of helps you in visioning yourself in a good situation or speaking positively upon yourself.
I don't know if it's a Libra thing. As of late, I've been hearing more and more about uh, cosmology, cosmogony. I just learned that word the other day, and astrology, and all the other ologies. And people are like, "You show strong traits of a Libra," without knowing my birth month. And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm a Libra," and they're like, "Yeah, I could tell." And then I believe one of the things is that Libras are driven by like the visual side of things. So like to see nice things, whatever nice means. And I think that actually helps me as a coach because I'm observing shapes. I'm looking for certain things. I guess you could say having like that eye of the architect when working with your trainees, your clients, seeing movement. But the same thing is taking place for me in fashion. Where that first started, my sister, she was very fashion. She was very inclined in that area in high school, like elementary school, high school. She was really up on it. And she used to constructively make fun of my outfits because I just put on whatever random thing I wanted to that was in my closet. And I have some pictures and it looked pretty interesting. So at 15, I ended up getting a job at this shop. It was like this inner city like footwear and apparel store that was like the coolest on the block. I was 15. The next youngest guy working there was like 22 or 23 years old. So I was the youngest by far. We had guys that were working there who were about 35 years old, the oldest. So I think that's where the fashion thing kind of planted a seed in my mind. I was looking at the latest in fashion at the time, pretty much on a daily. And then, fast forward to just it being a part of even the track and field culture. You went out there and, you wanted obviously you have to be fat. You're hoping that you were very fast in order to wear like the flashy spikes. They'd say that you better run fast if you're wearing those neon green spikes and stuff, but you're trying to coordinate that with your outfit because it was look good, feel good, race good. So it was one of those things where it was just always there, paying attention to the colors, to color palettes and what went with what and textures. And then first year university in Illinois, I see this guy in the dorms who's wearing this really cool t-shirt that doesn't look like any t-shirt I've seen before. So I asked him where he purchased it. He said, I made it. I said, what do you mean you made it? He said, I painted on this shirt. It was a white t-shirt I painted on it. And I was like, wow, can you tell me more? Like, what did you buy? At this point, he's like, nope. He shut the lines of communication off. It's one of those, like, I made it. I don't want you trying to do what I do. So it took me a couple months to to find myself at an art store. And instead of a t-shirt, I had a pair of jeans. And I just painted on the jeans. A couple weeks later, I painted a comic character, a superhero on a t-shirt. And then it just kind of continued on and on. That was like 2003, 2004. So I'm dating myself here. If those do your math properly, you know how old I am. So I said first university, you can kind of guess. So that was 2003, 2004. Through to 2005, I was painting a lot, like customizing clothing for friends, dance groups, and I stopped. I got back on in about 2016, so took quite a break. You know, one day I scuffed a pair of shoes that I really liked. You know, I was playing soccer with a group of kids who I coached, and you know, I stubbed my toe on the ground and just ripped the leather on the shoe. So I brought the shoe home and I'm like, instead of throwing it out, which is silly, or better to donate it, I'm going to paint on it. I'm going to turn it into a project. So I actually didn't realize what I was doing was revitalizing my love for customizing clothing or upcycling clothing and footwear. So painted the shoe. I felt they looked great. I wore them out. I got compliments. Perhaps a month later, I made a pair of jeans for a friend who was a client at the time, who was big into fashion. He reposted it. And then people were like, where can I find more? And that was like, I'd say 2017 or so. And 3 fashion shows later, like in 2000, basically 2019, end of 2018 through to late 2019, I participated in 3 fashion shows here in Edmonton, West Edmonton Mall, Art Gallery of Alberta, and the Edmonton Tower, which is like just downstairs. And I'm having a great time with it. I love customizing clothing and footwear. Not just because I like to see nice things, but there's something very therapeutic about it.
Yeah, you know? I mean, it's important to kind of have that, because we talked about how you had to sort of like build yourself back up after like the setback with getting sick during the Olympics. And when we're able to build ourselves up through any aspect, like it's just like if somebody's having a hard time with their training, but then they learn how to cook nutritious foods. And that's another tangent we'd go on another day, because I know that you're passionate about nutrition in ways as well. Because I watched your Instagram live with Greenhouse Eats. Is that the handle? Yeah. That was really good. I really liked that. But it's just like when we're able to find our confidence within like our exterior, just with our clothes, it's going to help with our head. Like it's going to help us to visualize success. It's going to help us to actually land on the moon instead of just settling for the stars. So it's cool that you do that, and hopefully people discover more about you in that way. There's a couple questions that I ask each of my guests. The first one is, if you could give a piece of advice to someone on how to live their life to the fullest, what would that piece of advice be?
Don't live in the fear of other people's judgment.
That's dope.
Because that could be the SHITTIEST prison, you know, that is not even like a physical prison, but it can feel like that because the mind will influence the endocrine system and feed you all types of interesting chemicals and downregulate certain parts of the brain and blah, blah, blah. If you read a lot of Dr. Robert Sapolsky, then, and I don't say blah, 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 and he's got bad stuff. He's got great content talking about what stress can do to the immune system, digestive system, and all that. So, you know, I find that in this day and age, a lot of us are worried, and myself included, spent time worrying too much about what other people think. So
and it's true.
It's such the shackles come off and you're living. You know, that's, I think, a large part of where freedom can come from.
A lot of the bad things with social media is it makes it easier to think too much about what other people think. And most often we just misinterpret it. We think that everybody's against us or we're behind, but it's just, that's the way social media works. So hopefully people understand to set boundaries around that to help them to stay at their strongest. The next part of this is you're going to give my audience a challenge for the day, something that you think will help them through the day, something that's unique to you. So when you're ready, just be like, your challenge for the day is, and just let them have it.
Oh my goodness, my challenge for the day. Part of me wants to make something physical, but I'm more on the side of like this here. My challenge for the day is this: to break down. This is kind of connected. I believe in the principle of correspondence. So I want to connect. Everything's connected. Can connect this to what we just talked about, and that is, I would like to challenge everybody to out in a public arena, public space, to just yell at the top of their lungs. But don't just yell, ah. I want you to yell one of your centrums or a mantra, a very short one, just to start. But to just yell out like, I am powerful, or I am confident, or I am grateful, or I am ready for adversity. Yell out some type of mantra at the top of your lungs, be it in the office, at work. And I know the first thing that will cross most people's mind is, I don't want to do that because I don't want other people thinking I'm crazy. It's like, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? You've just gone through like one of the craziest times in history, which is, COVID-19 and a worldwide like lockdown. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
It's so true.
Get comfortable in your mind,
So if people want to find more about you, where are you most present? Like aside from Instagram, like your Instagram handle will be on everything, Coach Pow, but where else can they find you?
There.
That's pretty straightforward. Usually I just assume, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything.
No, you didn't miss anything. I'm trying to be more present I'm obviously present here and here. What places where you can find me, or a little bit more about me or a little less about me, if I've talked too much about myself already, it would be on Instagram, Coach Pow _. For fashion, it's boats_on_clothes. Boats and clothes. I had that handle before and changed it, went back to it, and someone had already taken it.
Doesn't take long. People are quick on that stuff. But with all of that being said, sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
For anybody listening, we just kind of went through like a back and forth pointing at each other. That was awesome. First time that's really happened. But with that said, I'm going to wrap it up for the day. We've got a lot of people that we mentioned in this episode that have been on the show, a lot of people that Coach Pow and I both follow. So make sure to go back in the episodes, go back as far as episode 100. Here we are, episode 182, just trucking along. Lots of Edmontonians on the show, lots of people from the States. But with that being said, thank you so much for being on the show. It was so great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on this show. I love it. Love this platform. Love what you're doing. Not just because of the content, but also the reason why you're doing it. So that's very inspiring. Thank you very much for adding to my bucket, because it's supposed to be inspire and be inspired.
Awesome.
You helped with that. Thank you.